Before beginning, clean all components of the System 1 equipment prior to use. Clean the area of the pipe where the saddle and chains will be positioned, removing all scales so that the saddle rubber will seal properly and chains will seat correctly and not loosen when any scale under them is crushed. A clean working area will always make it easier to align the System 1 when removing the plug and inserting the T. Failure to do this may allow the saddle to move and gas to escape. First, loosen the plug to break the initial seal. Select the correct size saddle to match the pipe size and place it on the pipe and center it around the plug. Install the valve on top of the saddle and secure it to the pipe using the chains. To do this, push the chain bolts through the holes in the pivot pins. Add the washers and screw the nuts on one thread only by hand. Then install the other ends of the chains in the chain pull-up hooks, making sure that 2 pins from each chain are installed in the 2 slots. Finger tighten the chains equally while attempting to keep the valve centered with the plug. Fit the correct size plug carrier onto the magnetic spindle. Tighten the assembly with the socket head cap screw using the T-handle Allen wrench. Place the assembly over the plug. Next, fit the canopy over the spindle. Please note that it is very important to centralize the valve, canopy, and spindle over the plug for easy removal. So before tightening the chains with the wrench, observe the outer edge of the canopy with the recessed lip of the valve. If it looks even all the way around, then it is centered. If it is uneven, make the necessary adjustments by moving the valve. Tighten the chain bolts with the wrench a quarter turn using an alternating sequence. Make sure the canopy remains centered with the valve. Once the valve bolts are tight and canopy centered, secure the canopy using the swing bolts. Tighten with the wrench until snug, a quarter turn using an alternating sequence. Once the valve bolts and canopy swing bolts are tight, you may now begin to loosen the plug by turning the spindle counterclockwise with the valve wrench. Although uncommon, if you feel the plug binding up when loosening at either a half or full turn, it may mean that the assembly is not centered. If this occurs, simply stop and retighten the plug and bleed off the excess gas. To remedy, loosen and remove the swing bolts from the canopy. Then loosen the chain bolts just enough so the valve can be realigned with the canopy. Once you realign and seat the canopy into the recess, tighten the chain bolts. Once the valve is tight, then resecure the swing bolts and retighten. Once you feel the plug skip, pull up on the spindle. The plug is now completely removed from the main. Close the valve and bleed off the excess gas. Loosen the swing bolts and remove the canopy and spindle. Push, then pull the spindle out of the canopy to remove. Remove the plug. Then remove the plug carrier by removing the socket head cap screw using the T-handled wrench. Fit the correct brass bottom PET carrier onto the spindle. The opening of the T-carrier should be facing down, making it easier to line up the holes in order to insert the socket head cap screw through the assembly. Tighten with the T-handled Allen wrench. Next, remove the cap from the brass bottom PET and insert the T into the T-carrier. Make sure the flats of the brass nut line up with the flats on the T-carrier. Secure with the 2 set screws on both sides and do not over-tighten. Not shown here, before fitting the T, apply PLCS thread seal or company-approved pipe dope to the threads. Insert the spindle assembly into the canopy. Place the canopy onto the valve and tighten the swing bolts. Once snug, make sure the spindle is fully retracted inside the canopy and not resting against the valve plate. Make sure the bleeder valve is closed. Open the valve and push down on the spindle to lower the T into the hole. While maintaining slight downward pressure on the spindle, use the valve wrench and turn counterclockwise until you feel the thread skip. Then turn clockwise to tighten. Tighten as much as you can using the short-handled wrench only. Open the bleeder valve and bleed off any excess gas. Once you stop hearing the sound of gas, it is safe to remove the equipment. Loosen the swing bolts and remove the canopy by lifting it by its ears and pulling straight up. Remove the spindle. Loosen and remove the chains. Remove the valve. Remove the saddle. Loosen the set screws on the T-carrier and remove the T-carrier. If necessary, further tighten the T. Return the cap to the T. The operation is complete. Now you can make the necessary service connections according to your company procedures.